Um, we've got sort of a station set up over here, and we'll keep the press over here for you guys. Some of you might want to try this today, but a lot of you are probably going to have to wait till Friday to get something going. But here's an old plate that we made, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of what the image is here and why. But it's a B with a couple of knees, and it's scratched. And remember, the bevel, we want that to be facing up when you're doing your scratches. If you do it on the opposite side, we'll have to adjust the bevel on the outside. So make sure it's a hump, not a valley, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is a couple of things. First step is to get my piece of paper, and we're just gonna start with white so that you can really see what you've got on your plate, and black ink. I've got water over here, and you wanna put your paper into that water to soak while you charge your plate. So we've got brown paper over here. We'll roll out a new piece each time that we're doing this because this ink is going to get everywhere. So notice I've got a smock on, and we've got more of those next door in the ceramics room. Harry brought in a whole bunch of those doctor jackets, so you could use one of those as well. But it'll make cleanup a lot easier in transitioning to the next class if we do that. So if I miss it, you come in and the table doesn't have paper on there, put out some paper first so that you don't have as much to clean up. Then we have this special ink, okay? It's Akua brand, and it's supposed to be like an oil-based ink in that it'll stay wet for a long time. As a matter of fact, on a non-porous surface like this, it's supposed to stay wet forever, but that seems impossible, right? But it's actually pretty good. Now it's not oil-based, so we don't have to deal with the smell, but it acts like that. And a little bit will go a long way for you, which will make more sense in a minute, because the only ink that I need is the stuff that's going to stay in the scratches that I've created on here. So we don't want to overcharge or load this plate up with too much ink, because it's just going to end up getting wiped off later. So a little bit will go a long way. We've got some brushes here, but I'd like you guys to think about bringing over your own brush as well, so that we aren't all handling the same brushes. And then we've got gloves, which makes it safe, and will keep your hands clean. So what I'm going to do is put on my gloves. This is like the worst part. I should have got large gloves. I got medium, and they're just like, there we go. One down. Here is the second. All right. We're ready to go. So, I'm going to take one of these brushes. They're stenciling brushes, so they're flat on the top. And I'm just going to put a little bit of ink on there. And then on my plate, I'm going to kind of pound it down on the areas that need the ink. Work a little bit around some of the other spots. So I'm not really loading it up, and I'm not making the entire thing black. I forgot something. You guys should be used to this. I always forget something, right? So I'm going to get a piece of scrap mat board. We'll cut some smaller pieces for you guys so that you don't have to use a big giant thing like this. But to start removing that ink, I can take my scrap mat board and kind of scrape across. Put that someplace else. So I'm already going to start to be able to see where the ink is catching and where it's not catching. But I can't print that because that's going to look smeary and bad. So what we take is these things called tarletins. This is basically just cheesecloth and a little bit of starch. Notice they are already pretty black, right? So we use the black ones with the black ink, and then when we get out the colored ink in a week or so, we'll have some yellow ones, red ones, some ones for specific colors. What I want to do is I want to kind of ball it up, but make a flat surface on the top. I don't want it to be all scrunched up there. I want it to kind of be like covered there. And the fact that there's a little old ink on there, that's good, because we're going to try to get what we call plate tone. Hopefully I'll get it on this one you can see. But now I'm going to take this and I'm going to gently let the tarlatan do most of the work. Kind of wipe. I use a circular motion. And then get a new flat surface. Kind of adjust. Wipe some more. Now, as I'm looking at this, I can start to sort of see areas that look good. If I put it on a white piece of paper, I can see it a little bit better there. And you always kind of have to like pick it up and sort of check it out in the air, because you might have some fingerprints on there. But that's all part of the printmaking process. Like, as you're doing this, you're going to get better. So if you make one print, your print's going to be okay. Maybe you get lucky and you get a beautiful print on your first run, right? But the more you print, the better you'll get a feel for how hard to push, when to stop, and what works well for you. So at this point, I think I'm pretty good. So I'm going to take off my gloves. Got the trash can there for you guys. I'm going to take my paper, which is now soft. I'm going to find a clean spot, because this paper will pick up that ink. And I want to put down my paper, take some paper towels, and I want to blot it. So the goal is for your paper to be soft because it's wet, but for it to look dry. So you want to look at it and see if you see any like shininess or puddles on there. If there are, that's bad, because you get a little bit of bleeding from that. This looks pretty good, so I'm ready to go. So now I'm over to my press, okay? This press is an expensive piece of equipment, so we got to treat it well. One of the expensive parts about this press is this felt blanket that goes through there, okay? If we get ink on the felt blanket, that ink is going to come off on every print that goes through here for quite a while, until eventually you have to like replace the felt, right? So it's important that our hands are clean and that we protect the felt and the bed of the press. This is the bed. So we're going to take a paper towel and put down our paper towel close to the roller, and that will keep any ink that got on the back of my plate by accident from getting on the bed of the press. Okay. Then I'm going to take my plate, I'm going to put it face up on that paper towel. Then I'm going to take my paper, and here's where you got to be kind of careful, because you got like one shot at this, right? If you put it down and shift it around, things are going to smear on you. So I'm going to kind of lay it down like this, and then drop the edges so that it stays in that one spot. Then another paper towel, and I'll be watching you like a hawk the first time you do this, but the second paper towel is in case you get too much ink on your plate. It can go through the paper and into the blanket itself. So we try to protect from that happening by putting down that extra piece of paper towel. Then we're going to put down the blanket, okay? And on either side, we've got a gauge here for how much pressure we want to put on it. Each year, I get new plexiglass, all right? This is an old piece of plexiglass, and in your instructions, it says 17. But with our new plexiglass that was purchased to protect kids in the ceramics studio, we have a little different thickness. So I think we're going to be closer to 18 for you guys. First time somebody runs it through, we'll know for sure. But you want to check on both sides. So I'm looking over here to see where it's at right now. It's at 17, which means nobody has played with it since last year. That's awesome. But you got to check on both sides to make sure. Yep, 17 on both sides. And then here's the magic part. So I'm going to roll. And when I start to roll, if the bed doesn't move, give it a little bit of encouragement. I like to keep kind of like a hand where my plate is, so that it just to try to make sure it doesn't like shift when it first hits the pressure from the roller. So I'm going to roll. Oh, and I can tell already this is not enough pressure for this plate. So I'm going to do something that I wouldn't advise you to do right now, but I'm going to go down to 16. I'll adjust one more time. You should feel the pressure, but it shouldn't feel like you're going to break the plate, which you can. We're going to go back through. All right. There it is. Okay, excitement. See how I did. Okay, so here's the moment of truth, right? I can see I got good even pressure, water squeezed out. Awesome. I can see the indentation, that's good. Pull up my paper. Boom. There's my first print, right? The bee's knees. Now, things to look for. We want clean lines, right? We don't want things that look like they've smeared when they've gone through there. And the second thing that an old-fashioned printmaker instructor would look for is even plate tone. Notice how it is a little bit darker than the paper. That's plate tone. If you get plate tone evenly across your entire thing and it doesn't look like a little darker in one area, that's good printmaking. So notice, I did not get even plate tone everywhere. I have a couple of mistakes. Gotta work on my printmaking skills, right? That's where the practice comes in. If your portfolio is being looked at by an old-fashioned printmaker and you put in a photograph of this piece, they're gonna be like, oh, they need to work on their printmaking skills. However, if you get one of these young pups who, you know, is like more concerned with your ideas than your craftsmanship, you're fine, okay? We want to be able to get a good score from both of those people, right? Old-fashioned printmaker, this is the end, right? New age thinker, you know, well, what if I drew on top of this? What if I ripped this up and collaged it and put it on something else? I can still use this to get my ideas across. I don't have to stop when it comes off of the press. Last thing, these go onto the drying rack. Work your way up from the bottom, right? And back at it. So you might look at your print and say, you know, that was okay, you know, but I want a little more dark here. You can go back and start scratching some more. Over here we've got your scratching tools. So there's a variety of them. This is a dry point needle. It's a beautiful one actually right now. So this is what most of you will be using. Use it just like a pencil to draw with, scratch. Even light pressure will work. But remember I told you, you can use anything to scratch with. So I got dental tools, I've got sandpaper if you want to rough up a big area, wire brushes, files, all sorts of stuff. And we have some of these too that you can come back and burnish. So like say you want to get rid of some marks, you can come rub over the surface of them to sort of erase things. Can't erase completely because there'll always be a little trace of what was there, but you can soften some of the things that are in there as well on that. So why bee's knees? What's your thoughts?